Donald Trump has been indicted again, this time in the state of Georgia. The former U.S. president is facing a new set of charges that relate to his alleged attempts to overturn the 2020 federal election in that state. The sweeping indictment names Donald Trump and 18 others, and the Fulton County District Attorney spoke about it this morning.
The grand jury issued arrest warrants for those who are charged. I am giving the defendants the opportunity to voluntarily surrender no later than noon on Friday, the 25th day of August, 2023.
Ashley Burke is in Washington covering the Trump story for us this week. Ashley, as I said, this is a sweeping case against the former U.S. president. What is Donald Trump accused of?
It is, Heather, and this paints a very broad picture of an alleged conspiracy in a way that we haven't seen before. Donald Trump is accused of being the head of an organized crime enterprise, and 18 other defendants, including his top lawyers and aides, also charged, including people like Rudy Giuliani, John Eastman, and former White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows. This indictment alleges that they knowingly and willfully joined a criminal conspiracy to unlawfully change the results of the 2020 election in Georgia and also in other states. We're talking about 40 charges, including making false statements, pressuring officials to violate their oath of office. But the most serious charges that all the defendants are facing are the racketeering charges. This is a powerful tool in Georgia. It is used to go after organized crime, to take down mafia bosses, break up gangs, and it's being used in this case. Now, within hours of this indictment being released late last night, Donald Trump lashed out online. He called the prosecutor at the center of this corrupt, out of control. He accused her of a continued witch hunt. And then later he said that he was going to hold a press conference on Monday and release a report of his own that he says will exonerate him.
Actually, this is the fourth indictment against the former president in just a matter of months. You mentioned the RICO law. That is one significant difference. But how is this Georgia indictment in other ways different from the others?
Well, it's happening in Georgia, in a state, rather than being a federal case like the other indictments. And for one, the sheriff in Fulton County in Georgia, where this prosecution's happening, said that if Trump was indicted, he would treat him like any other criminal defendant. That means doing fingerprints, and said he was ready to take a mugshot. Also, unlike the federal cases, TV cameras are allowed inside the courtroom. So this whole thing, this whole criminal trial, all the witness testimony, it could be televised. And as well, if there's conviction for racketeering charges in Georgia, there is a minimum 5-year sentence in prison, maximum 20-year sentence. And if Trump becomes president, he cannot pardon himself in Georgia, and the governor also can't pardon him there.
Ashley, we heard the district attorney, Fani Willis, say that August the 25th, that's the deadline for when those named in the indictment can voluntarily turn themselves in. Look ahead for us. What's coming up?
That's what people are looking to right now, that August 25th deadline. Will Trump surrender earlier than that, travel to Georgia before those 10 days is up, and move forward with this case? As well, the judge at the center, the prosecutor at the center of this, said that she's seeking a trial within 6 months. In the past, Trump's team has pushed back on having a trial before the election in the hopes that Trump can be president and that this can all go away. So we'll be watching closely to find out what kind of trial date they'll be talking about.
Ashley, thank you very much. Ashley Burke is in Washington today. Let's look at this case and this indictment even more closely. Once again tonight, Gwen Keyes Fleming is with us, the former district attorney in DeKalb County, neighboring to Fulton County in the state of Georgia. It's so good to have you back, Gwen. You prepared us so well yesterday, and now we have that 98-page document in hand. So let's look at it in more depth. How closely does the indictment match your expectations?
It matches it pretty closely. We, my co-authors and I, issued a report probably just about a year and a half ago outlining some of the charges we thought were viable just based on what was in the public realm. And so you see some of those charges listed here, including RICO, including false statements, false swearing, some charges under the election code as well. The other thing you see is solicitation to commit forgery, as you think about the fake elector scheme in terms of having folks sign documents and deliver them to Congress indicating that they were the true electors representing the state of Georgia, when in fact they were not. So there's a lot of similarities, but then there's some new charges. There are perjury perjury charges, for example. And so those are things that only could have come up as a result of the DA's investigation and was not known publicly.
Ashley was mentioning the RICO law, the centerpiece to this case, and we spoke about it yesterday in the hypothetical, but now Trump has been charged with violating RICO, Racketeer Influence and Corrupt Organizations Act. Is what this is saying in simple language, Gwen, the Trump campaign is a criminal enterprise and he is the head of that enterprise?
Well, I think it's saying that a group of them, all 19 individuals, had a part to play in ensuring that the former president stay in office, that he obtain a second term, when in fact the vote count in Georgia yielded the opposite result. And so the indictment, through a series of 161 separately enumerated acts, outlines each defendant's role, if you will, in maintaining that enterprise. Now, some of these acts are just things that were done in furtherance of the conspiracy. They are sending emails or making calls. They are not in and of themselves crimes. But in order to be successful in RICO, the DA alleged that there were several predicate crimes committed. And a predicate crime is simply a crime that is specifically enumerated in Georgia's RICO statute as one of the qualifying or foundational crimes that needs to be proven for the case to go forward. And those do include things, like I said, false statements, solicitation of forgery, even computer trespass.
So many aspects of it are interesting to observers. People who haven't even been into Georgia allowed to be named in this indictment. But you mentioned that all of the co-conspirators are named, all 18 plus Donald Trump, so 19 all told, unlike in the federal indictment. In terms of a legal strategy, could you share some insight for us? Is she aiming to put pressure on some of those who might be further down the rankings in this alleged criminal enterprise? Might she be trying to exert pressure on them or to get them to flip? How would you see that?
Well, let me make one thing clear. While there are 19 individuals specifically named in the indictment, it also references about 30 other unindicted co-conspirators. Some of them that are listed by specific number, some that are because they were known to the grand jury, and some that were unknown. So you still have that dynamic of indicted co-conspirators and unindicted co-conspirators. But in terms of the strategy going forward, to be honest, I think it's too early to tell. This indictment is not even yet 24 hours old. I'm assuming of the 19 that are named, many of them are beginning to think about what their next steps might be in terms of getting counsel, figuring out how they wish to proceed. And obviously, all 19 are innocent until proven guilty. But this does start the process of them having to turn themselves in. Eventually, we'll get to the point of arraignment. We will then begin to see, or maybe even before then, see a series of motions filed for discovery from the DA's office. And so as that information is shared through discovery, then you might start to see some individuals indicate that they want to either strike a deal, and that's where the DA might negotiate to provide lesser sentences in exchange either for testimony or something else that she may need to help bolster her case.
Okay.
But we are really in the early stages here, and we'll have to see how that unfolds.
She did indicate, looking down the line, that she planned to try all 19 at once. She made that clear in her briefing last night. Is that even possible logistically?
I think anything is possible. But again, let's remember, as the DA, she cannot say, I'm not ready to go. She is very confident in her case, and I think that's what we saw last night. She's not only ready to try all 19, and let's remember, she has extensive experience trying large numbers of defendants in these RICO type cases in the past. She's built her career on this type of complex case. Whether there's space for all 19 defendants to sit somewhere in the courthouse, whether the judge will need to make accommodations, or whether the parties will agree to smaller bite-size tranches of the case, all of that will have to be seen. But from a prosecutor's perspective, when you have a RICO indictment that lets you tell the whole story and how different defendants' actions play into that story, it's very hard to break things up. So I'm not surprised that she would say she wants to try all 19 at once for that reason.
Finally, look ahead for us for a moment or two, if you would, Gwen. We were talking with Ashley about that August 25th date as set by the district attorney to voluntarily surrender. And we've talked about how the police chief has said there will be a mugshot, and we've talked a little bit about how in the courtroom cameras would be allowed. What will all the impact of that be? Look ahead to the arraignment date for us.
Well, I think it will demonstrate, at least at the state level, the openness and transparency and public nature of our judicial system. This will be an opportunity for everybody to see with their own eyes what happens in court, just like we witnessed the indictment being returned from the grand jury, the judge reviewing it last night, it then being put in the custody of the clerk and her walking through the hallways with various guards and things, sheriffs around her to protect the integrity of the document. All of that should create confidence in the criminal justice system. You see how it works. You don't have to question, was there tampering or any ill opportunities for ill-gotten gain? And so that is one of the unique things about the state system, that the cameras in the courtroom will leave no question as to what has happened or is happening for those of us that might not be able to get a seat.